Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, September 7th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Youngstown State game in 2 days. The game against Michigan in 79 days. Let's just be real honest. There's been some real not intelligent talk about Ohio State football on the internet this week. That's a new thing. But we are going to try and class things up a little bit, bring the level of intellect around that conversation up a little bit. We are welcoming in everybody's smart football friend, Ross Fulton, BuckeyeHuddle's X's and O's guru. We're trying something a little new today. By the time you watch this, you will probably eventually figure out whether I have figured out how to make it work or not. But we're going to try and have a little bit of video from plays so we can illustrate what we're talking about rather than doing this as a little bit more of an academic exercise. But Ross, before we get to that, and hopefully we do get to that, but before we get to that, I wanted to just throw the floor open to you. There has been plenty of discourse online about the Ohio State quarterback position this week, whether the world is in fact about to end or not. Your thoughts on just overall how week one of the 2023 season went for the Ohio State quarterback position and offense.
I think it was okay. And I say that in the sense of like, I don't think the sky is falling. I didn't think it was all that different than CJ Stroud was in his first start. I probably, I think we talked about before the game that Big Ten road game is not the same as playing a MAC or certainly Youngstown State at home. And, Indiana has some good players on defense. So I thought that, I guess overall I would say that it does tell me something that when they were in a close game that Ryan Day, I think he used the word his gut, in his press conference on Tuesday. And that tells you something that he just felt more comfortable with Kyle McCord in the game. In terms of McCord, I think again, we could sit here and I could pull 5 clips where I thought he did a really nice job. He goes through progressions, he gets the ball in the right spot. You can also find clips where he, too quickly, rushes through his reads or checks down, or, his footwork breaks down a little bit, and he airmailed a ball to Marvin Harrison on a deep out route that he should have was an easy completion. So there is something for everyone who wants to have a preconceived position. But I do think coming out of it, as we'll talk about, to me, McCord looks most comfortable. Shotgun, 3-step drop, RPOs. He makes quick decisions. He makes decisive reads. He's pretty accurate in those situations. And so it reminds me a little bit of maybe some of Dwayne Haskins' strengths as well. And, assuming that McCord is going to be the quarterback, I think that they need to tailor the offense, to reflect those strengths. Not that they can't still throw, Ryan Day's favorite 4 verticals or Yankee concepts, but, maybe not 5 times each a game, and maybe, lean more into mesh and RPOs.
All right. And one thing that they have leaned into a bunch over the years is stretch. We see them run stretch a whole bunch. They ran it on the first play of the game. That was the first play you wanted to talk about. So, all right, let's get right into it. It's a run, so we don't get to talk about quarterbacks right away, but you got a little bit of quarterback talk now. We're going to eat our vegetables. We're going to talk a little about the run game. All right, go ahead. First play of the game.
So we talked about last week, right? Matt Geary had been with Jim Knowles. He'd seen plenty of Ryan Day. I mean, although I don't even know if you need to be on Ohio State staff to know that running stretch to the boundary is, Ryan Day's base run play. But Indiana definitely had a plan for it, as you saw in the very first play. So Ohio State kept sending faking fly sweep with the wide receiver. I'm not quite sure what they thought they were going to get with that. I'm not sure it really added much in hindsight, but they do that here right away with Harrison. They send him in motion, and Indiana runs again with the first of many, what's called 3 cloud. So what that means is you're running cover 3, but the corner to the boundary is one of the underneath defenders. And so that provides force support to the short side of the field. So you have a corner squatting, sitting there. And then a lot of what Indiana did is exactly what you see on this play, which is they would then slant their defensive ends inside. And so they're trying to create or have linebackers run through. Basically, they're just trying to spill the ball, that force defender. So right away, you see, Josh Fryer, he probably should have let that defensive end go, stayed on his own track and got out. But instead you have a corner and a safety just sitting there unblocked on this play, and it's no gain. And so Ohio State did do better as the game went on, preparing to handle that squat corner or the strategy Indiana was doing in terms of staying on their zone step, but it was always an issue. And then Indiana kept doing more things to make it more difficult to run to the boundary. Like they started putting their 3 technique to the boundary and trying to make Carson Hinsman reach him, which is a really difficult block for a center. Now, Chip Trayanum handled that later in the game by immediately bending back and got a big gain by basically cutting behind everything. And again, I think he sort of flashed what a lot of people saw in terms of his vision on Saturday. But Indiana, definitely had a plan to limit Ohio State's boundary stretch run game.
All right, so now we get to talk a little bit quarterback, a little bit of passing game, and this is one where I think there was a lot of criticism. Hey, Kyle McCord did not throw the ball downfield enough, and this is one where you can't always see on TV what's happening downfield, and why is he not throwing it downfield? Well, sometimes the guys downfield are covered, and sometimes the short pass is the right play. So run us through this next one. Okay,
so this is a good example. Again, you get to see Indiana's coverage scheme, and again, we're getting a 3 cloud here. And what Indiana's going to do is they're essentially finding a way through cover 3 to bracket both Harrison and Egbuka. So Ohio State's running another Ryan Day staple, all curl. So you get 3 curl routes and you get 2 guys in the flat, which is a good, it stretches cover 3. It is a cover 3 beater concept. But what Indiana does is they get a ton of depth from their 3D defenders. So they have someone remaining over the top of Harrison and Egbuka. And then their linebackers are also getting a ton of depth. Their linebackers are even, I'd say, less playing their zone and more like they were obviously instructed to like turn around, find 18 and 2 and basically make a beeline for them. So you kept seeing this a lot of what essentially was, yes, cover 3, but turn into like they would find ways to bracket and have a defender underneath Harrison and a defender underneath Egbuka. So, I mean, it's funny because there was a lot of complaints about not getting the ball more to Harrison and Emeka Egbuka. And, Harrison was targeted 8 times. But on the flip side, I don't think you want a brand new quarterback trying to force the ball into double coverage. So, again, I think this was the right read. This is why Stover had 8 catches, because they would leave him singled up on a linebacker. I think as what we can talk about further, like I think Ohio State missed opportunities to target like these underneath and mid-range passes that I think were both open and again, sort of take advantage of McCord. But you don't want to conversely have him trying to force the ball into Harrison and throwing three interceptions as a result because, and they're going to have to deal with this because Indiana, again, like other teams know that their only chance is to try to limit 18 and 2.
Man, oh man, I know we've had a running bit on Buckeye Weekly for like 5 years that it's the year of the tight end. I'm starting to get the vibe that it could really be the year of the tight end if everyone is going to try and double up Marvin and Emeka on every play. Oh man, could be the year of the tight end for real.
Here, I've never done this. People complain about the tight end not getting the ball enough, and then he has like 5 catches for 100 yards, and no one's happy about that. So,
wow, unprecedented in college football. They won by three touchdowns almost. Yeah, but not the way I wanted them to. So yes, we'll continue to monitor that situation. Another thing that actually is worth monitoring. Short yardage, not always great on Saturday. It felt like they were in 3rd and 2 a lot and converted maybe less than half of them. I'm not that is not an official statistic. I'm going off vibes there, but the vibes were not great in short yardage. So what were the issues that they were experiencing?
Yeah, and I think this is where the film's helpful again, because, I think a common complaint when teams are stopped in short yardage is it must not be the offensive line firing off the ball enough or like holding their blocks. And I think Ryan Day said the same thing on Tuesday. It wasn't that anyone was getting beat. What was happening is they were misidentifying blocks and not handling it. So if you look at this 3rd and 2 run, Ohio State clearly had a plan for short yardage. And it's get super heavy packages, get Chip Trayanum at fullback, Mine Williams at tailback, and run power, which, everyone front side blocks down, the backside guard pulls, as you see here. Problem is, what Indiana did in response to power is they wanted to run through their linebacker. So you can see on this play, 44 comes behind the pulling guard and shoots the gap unblocked. On this one, unfortunately, you have a jumbo package here with Luke Montgomery as the play side tight end, and he just blocks the wrong guy. Like he blocks the play side linebacker, who's Donovan Jackson's responsibility pulling around. Now, I guess you could maybe argue that like Donovan Jackson pulling needs to keep his eyes up and take the first thing that flashes and sort of try to rectify the situation. But this is just an example. I think every tackle Indiana made in short yardage was from an unblocked defender. So I guess the bad news is that was happening. The good news is, to me, that's just like purely a coaching tape issue that can be resolved. So, I think they need to get better at coming on the combination blocks, keeping their eyes up. I think they need to get better pulling, keeping their eyes up. But it's not an issue of, to me, like lack of talent or lack of determination.
Now, Ryan Day on Tuesday talked about the play of Carson Hinsman, and, it was solid, but there was some, I think he said, use the word funky with some of the line calls. Is that like a line call issue, or is that the play is going and, in this case, it's a true freshman in his first college game, not blocking the right guy, which is, totally understandable because it's a true freshman in his first college game, but also B, probably fairly correctable in the film room.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's a line call issue, it's that can be a little difficult to tell, even without knowing the play. Here, to me, it looks like more of like a true freshman mistake, because if you see the play at the start, he starts on the correct path to the backside linebacker, but then he just he sees the guy coming and he just bails and goes to the play side linebacker. And so, I think at the time of the game, I was like, oh, I wish they would have ran that. The play they then run on fourth down was, fake this, try to throw it to Trainum in the flat. He gets tripped up. I wish they would have ran that on third down. I think there's, again, a bigger question they need to ask themselves in terms of like, strategically, is this our best options in short yardage to get like super heavy jumbo packages and try to smash mouth? I know Day was asked that on Tuesday. And maybe some of that makes sense. Again, I think they need to vary it up. Like, can't just run power in short yardage. Got to have some other options. And, maybe your fullback should be your tailback. But I think, there is like, people playing for the first time made first time mistakes. And like, I guess it's always one of these, like, I kind of think of Bill Connelly, SP plus, like Indiana's not a great team, but again, it's like they're better than playing, a MAC school at home. So it's like, it's all relative, right? And so they did have guys on defense that could take advantage of mistakes like this.
All right. So you mentioned the fullback who maybe should be playing tailback. That guy's name is Chip Trayanum, if I have read the room correctly, and I'm pretty sure that I have. Let's talk about Chip Trayanum a little bit. We're going to run a big run play for him on counter. Let's walk us through this one.
Yeah. And so the first thing is, I don't want to like leave people with the impression that like Ryan Day and Justin Fry, Heartline, were just banging their heads against the wall, running stretch over and over and over again. Like, yes, they ran plenty of boundary stretch, but they also actually were probably a more diversified run game than I've seen, including running counter tray multiple times. And so this is one of them. And so I think, personally, again, I would like to see them continue to lean into this, but like, I think what Trainum has a great combination of like, he's decisive. He reads things well, and then he cuts. So multiple times, like on this play, again, the reason that I should say that this counter was working so well is, again, you can see Indiana's like strategy of crashing everything inside and trying to spill the ball out. But so you could basically just kind of like stretch, whereas they kind of work against stretch because it's slower moving, and stretch is really predicated on like eventually cutting the football upfield. It's easier to bounce gap runs like this, and so he was able to do it. But as I said, it wasn't even just the bounce, and then he's pretty fast to the sideline in a straight line. But it was also like, as I said, a great counter example was when they did run stretch and IU flowed with the ball, he cut it upfield. So I thought his vision was pretty impressive. And so, I'm not saying that Henderson and Williams shouldn't play. I just think that they're going to have to keep featuring Trainum. And, he should be on the field a lot. Like, if they are going to keep rotating a lot of tailback, he should play fullback a decent amount. And they should do some things with some two back looks. Because, I think he's one of their, top offensive players. So, but they do need to continue to as well work this diversification of the run game.
The year of the tight end, the year of the fullback. Man, I'm feeling like I'm back in my college days in the 1990s. Matt Keller, where are you? Got to be Jamar Martin. Got to be coming around that corner any day now. One last thing that is not so much from the 1990s. Those three magical letters that always work in football, no matter what in offense these days. RPO. Everyone loves them. A good run pass option. I don't know that everyone completely understands the run pass option. We're going to talk a little bit about one right here. This is one that really worked pretty well for the Buckeyes.
Yeah. And again, I think that this, to me, this is not just a 2023 Ohio State thing. I mean, I've said this before, but I feel like when Ohio State gets this kind of look, which Indiana was doing a lot again, you're going to play super soft corner to the field and playing a soft cover 3. And you're basically they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, right? By again, like being able to mess around inside up front against the run, but protect themselves against just getting beat deep. And so, this is just an easy throw and catch. They ran this twice on Saturday. There was a third time where I'm not sure if it was a called RPO, but it was Harrison sitting there with like a 15-yard cushion. And again, I think this is sort of where McCord's at his best. He had another nice throw to Stover on a little option route over the middle of the field where he read the single coverage correctly and got it out and was pretty accurate. And, so I think this can give a clearer picture, and again, if the concern is getting Harrison and Egbuka the ball, like you can do this until they get within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage on the corner side. Things like this, things like mesh, I agree with the general premise that like they can't have another game go by where Harrison and Egbuka, don't have the production. Now, again, I think people would have felt a lot better if like the Harrison touchdown that was called back from stepping out of bounds occurred. And I think that could have maybe flipped the entire how the game ended. Cause that was a nice throw by McCord. But I do think they need to, but the easiest way to get them the ball is not try to force it downfield necessarily if teams are trying to take that away. It's just to take advantage of these easy throws. And again, you don't need to get in heavy packages to do it either. You can keep your wide receivers on the field. If you want to go 12 personnel, they've got this one package with a hitch to the field with a bubble of wide receiver screen. You can see to the boundary. So you have multiple options there on the split zone. And I just think that they, again, need to sort of lean into the getting the ball out quickly if teams are going to give you that and let the receivers make the yards after catch.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And boy, hopefully all the editing magic that I'm hoping to work is in fact going to work. And this is all going to be great. Otherwise, it'll just be like a normal show and that'll be fine too. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. We're going to be trying to do more of this stuff. And I can tell already people are, well, why are they only talking about the offense? Oh, friends, guess what? We're going to do another morning show tomorrow. That's how this works. We do it every day. We're going to be talking defense tomorrow. We'll probably be taking a little bit of a look ahead at Youngstown State as well. And just sort of what are sort of the markers for improvement that you should be looking for during that game. So we'll talk a bunch about that on tomorrow's show. But for now, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you're subscribed to our site at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Ross and Justin Whitlatch and Mikey Pettit, all those guys covering X's and O's, making you a smarter football fan. Lots of real deep dive on this stuff. And they're on the board answering your question. So you have a question about why did they do this? That doesn't make any sense. There's usually a reason for that. So they can make you a smarter football fan. You can just wow people at your tailgate with fun new football terminology and a little bit of insight into the why behind the stuff that you see during the game. So that will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.